Okay, we're on.
Hello and happy August 3rd, 2021
Yes.
from North Carolina to Lockdown Central.
hmm
Aren't you going to be wearing like a striped prison uniform before long? I understand now you have military on the streets in Brisbane.
They're getting stricter and stricter. Yeah, so the lockdown got extended from a 3-day to a 7-day lockdown, and yeah, they're
Was
pulling
that an
people.
issue, an edict by the Red Queen?
It's all
You're
controlled
in
by.
Queensland, right?
Right, right. I see. Yeah, the
You wouldn't by some chance be the Velveteen Rabbit stuck in Wonderland, would you?
maybe. I mean,
Sometimes I think so, Troy. You're a fantastic figure.
okay, yeah. But yeah, they are starting to pull people over just and ask where they're going and do they really need to be traveling. And yeah, that's one of the first. I mean, they always said that they might be doing that, but now they're putting it out, and yeah, it's actually happening.
So
So
do you think this is like National Socialism on acid? Right?
well,
Everybody, all everybody with a sense of authority is now a Nazi. Like we in the past we've had feminazi, you remember those, right?
right.
And now we've got what, COVID Nazi? Well,
Well,
interesting.
yeah, from my side on the medical and health interest, I think it's a good idea to not try and spread diseases, and if you can avoid it, then that's great. If there's a method for limiting the impact of the spread of the disease, why not do it? And from in my industry in IT, I've already kind of unknowingly prepared for that by being able to do my work from the laptop and be able to work from home and set my own schedule for a long time. So personally, yeah, it doesn't really impact me in a great deal. And if anything, it kind of allows me to get ahead, because everybody else is kind of feeling the impact of not being able to go to work and not being able to do this. But yeah, for me it doesn't make a difference. And yeah, if I can keep going strong, then yeah, it's all in favor of me and my industry. And but yeah, it is at the same time pretty scary in terms of the um, larger impact of what this is going to have um, around the world, in terms of, like we were talking about, budget cuts in universities, and yeah, government funding being redirected from one place to another. But yeah, I think it might be a good change if we can, use technology and apply it in a way that sets us up and just, makes us stronger.
You think that what you're espousing here is making us stronger?
Well, yeah, I think that's what happens, in nature. Things come along and you need to adapt, and you need to evolve, and you need to change the way that you go about life. And those, it's kind of, yeah, survival of the fittest model. And
That
yeah,
which doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
that's right.
This is an interesting relationship between you and me, because for me, I would say I would issue no controls. I would
Mhm.
let the disease run its course. I would, because if I understand correctly, and I had a very nice conversation with a group of physicians today in my area, and we were talking about COVID, and it was like one of our prominent, quote unquote, politicians from South Carolina, his name is Lindsey Graham, has been totally vaccinated, right? And he came down with COVID. So we brought the subject up, and it's like, yeah, 75% of the people who are vaccinated
Mm-hmm.
Are not immune to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, they become super spreaders that, thinking that they're all protected, they go out and they, do this and do that. I don't believe in masks either, because these viruses certainly have to be a lot smaller and can penetrate these little cotton squares, right? Which they look at and probably use like monkey bars and jump through. And it's just ridiculous. I think the whole thing is a ruse. It's a joke. It's a weaponizing a disease in order to gain control over it. I'm a conspiracy theorist, obviously, right? That all this is being done not for our good. It's a total waste of money. Nobody knows what they're doing. The vaccine came out far too early. It's like the United States after 9/11 in New York, right? The World Trade Center bombing. We jumped off everywhere, occupy every country we could, not because we were trying to stop the terrorists, which is sort of like, I don't know, mold in your bathroom. You never notice them until you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's too late. And it's like, what good did that do? How many lives did that cost? And today we're just like, okay, leaving Afghanistan. Now, somebody remind me why we were there in the first place, and that the Chinese are moving in from one side, and that the Pakistanis are moving in from the other side, and God knows whatever else is happening, while they're going to vaccinate 10 million more Chinese people in Wuhan. It's like, what are we doing besides, having some kind of a little fairy circle where we're all just, floating around in a circle around a maypole, and that would get more done than everything Fauci and all of these other people are doing. I say, if 99% of the people are unaffected by COVID, why are we spending so much time, energy, money, blah, blah, resources on trying to, protect people who are going to die anyway?
Mm-hmm.
It's a clotting factor, it's a heart inflammation. If you're one of these people, it can create what is it? DVT, deep vein thrombosis, just like that from taking the vaccination. Women in Sweden are experiencing reproductive difficulties. It's like, with everything, all that safety net that they're introducing by, get the jab, make it, it's like a bad rap song, right? I should probably write a rap song about get the jab, doody boo, hoobadoo, that kind of stuff, which would probably do a lot more good than any vaccination or booster. Let's see, my brother's on number 3. I expect, whenever he does get COVID, which if it's anything like previous vaccinations, right, with polio or whatever, they try to kill the virus and then inject it into your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know if that's what the vaccine does, because it looks to me a lot like corn syrup, right, with a chip in it, of course. We want to track all these people, and then later on we'll just say, hey, it was a joke, right? But nobody's going to get the joke. So again, we have 2 different ways of looking at things, and usually, we apply both methods for each other's satisfaction, and that makes it enjoyable and kind of an open forum. It's okay to talk about COVID, as long as you toe the line, and but towing the line, suddenly you realize, goes limp when they change their whole approach. It's like, we didn't say not to wear your mask. Now we're saying you have to wear your mask. And yesterday we told you not to wear your mask. Nobody's asking, what kind of mask am I supposed to wear? Maybe I'll just have a big tattoo, right, across my face, make everybody think I'm wearing a mask. Well, it's this false sense of security.
Yeah,
I think so. let it go, let it run, you know?
I think,
And stop trying to fight something that mutates every 5 seconds.
Mhm,
It's a
mhm.
virus. That's what viruses do.
Yeah.
And there are the minutes of the meeting.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, I think we all should be able to do what we want to do as individuals. And, there's a lot of people in this power, and, the system has put them in that position where they can, execute that power, or exercise, I should say, that power. And, it goes to show, well, time will tell whether or not these are the right people to be in power. And I think for a long time, the way humankind has kind of evolved as a species has attracted these types of people that aren't necessarily, holistic thinkers, but, want to have the
A
position.
politician,
Yeah, these
holistic
politicians.
thinker, maybe in California.
Well, yeah, so the positions attract the wrong type of people. People that just want to, they feel they want to make a difference, but they want to be in control. And, and the structure, I guess, has built over time where I don't know who's running the show anymore, but, there's things coming down from the top in terms of, I think, ulterior motives. And yeah, it's definitely there. But for me, as long as I can do what I want to do, I'll put on a mask, and I will get the vaccine. I don't see any issues with doing that.
Have you had a vaccine?
No, I haven't yet, but it is available, and
They're
I'll
paying
probably
you $100 to take it in the US.
you have to
They're
pay.
paying you to get
Oh,
vaccinated.
they're paying you. Wow, right. But
I
yeah,
wonder how many times I can get vaccinated, right?
yeah.
It's like giving blood.
Mm-hmm,
I'm a drunk. I need to buy more liquor. I go give blood, right? So that I can dilute my blood even more.
Yeah. So, but I think, yeah, as long as people can do what they want to do individually and not, be impacted too much by what these, people in power are trying to do. And if you can live in balance with that, then, and I think eventually things will turn, like we're talking about, decentralization and, kind of this, the word swarm comes to mind.
Swarm,
Yes, like how everybody,
locust.
yeah, well, bees also swarm, but yeah, there's this aspect of individuals being able to go about their life and be a part of a bigger system, but it works in a big in terms of there's no one controller saying you must do this. And
One of my first, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it needs to be a balance. I'm not saying one is the answer over the other, but because I see countries like Bhutan where they do have a really strong leader, and
They have what?
a strong leader through the king.
You mean the lazy king, you mean?
Well, yeah, I mean,
How many wives does he have now?
the fourth king, yeah, is even more of an example of this leadership kind of, I guess, providing this level of people knew what to do. But yeah, I don't want to get too much into Bhutan and the politics and the aspects of
Yeah, no,
going in
you're
there.
liable.
But
Yep.
yeah, I think things changed from the fourth king to the fifth king, and yeah, but it still has that sense of the leadership coming down from one person, and not just one person, but one kind of value around this happiness and being sustainable in the world. So these are the sorts of things that come from the leader. But yeah, no matter who's there, whether it's the fourth king, fifth king, or sixth king, they hold those values true, and it works to have a leader that isn't of power but is somehow influential. And
So
yeah,
not a king, but an influencer.
well, yeah, someone that that by their actions gains respect and attention.
Do you think that's programmed into people, that it doesn't really matter who in this case, who the king is, as long as there is a king, right? The king is dead, long live the king.
Yeah.
And in that way, it kind of matches up with other figures of authority, like the good Lord, whoever that may be, right?
That's right.
At any one time, or which country you're in, or what prophet superseded the previous prophet. That gives credence to my way of understanding who the central being is. Politburo, or the presidency, or the monarchy, or whatever. There are lots of samplings of that everywhere. And even in Bitcoin, everybody, oops, there I did. I mentioned cryptocurrency, I mentioned Bitcoin. So there is, that central authority who determines this, that, and the other, as much as any of the big billionaires who are now playboys of the planet are. It's like you get some people worship Bezos, some people worship, choose one.
Yeah.
Right. And they actually stand for something that resonates within me. But, at this point in time, they're doing a lot of talking and not much action. I mean, they want you to think that passing a law is an action. Well, I obey the laws I like. And I don't know any laws, and I don't want to know any laws. I do what I think I need to do. Within reason, I would say, right? And my mother calls me a rebel, and it's like, Mom, I'm not a rebel. I'm an independent thinker. That's not to say, I want to separate myself from everybody else, but there are people in this area that hang on to things that I might consider to be long dead. And it's sort of like they're walking around with what I call a raggedy Jesus, right, in a parade, and it's like people are asking each other, is that what Jesus looks like? And it's like, well, Jesus is not supposed to look like anything, right? But now they've gone back to idol worship and et cetera, et cetera. So what emerges is what people can touch, can see, can feel, essential. But the introduction of a limitless being, it leaves me to say, okay, tell me. You can't tell me about the limitless being, because if you define him, her, it, then you give a definition. So we'll just say that this limitless supreme being, this imaginary being, is in control of my life. But he doesn't send me letters. He has a book that apparently is supposed to represent him, that was written from letters that people sent each other 2,000 years ago. And it's like, is that relevant today? I guess I'm a dissident, right? Not because I'm against everything. It's sort of like people say, well, you're biased. And it's like, no, I'm not. I hate everybody, right? That's what some of my friends say. And it's like, excuse me, not my friends, people that I occasion from time to time. But everybody's afraid. know, and when I first went to Russia, the lasting impression I got on board one of these trams, electric trams, was the ticket taker. Sometimes you knew who the ticket taker was.
Mhm.
If you didn't buy a ticket, then a ticket taker would emerge out of the crowd and give you a super fine, right? And most people would just sit there like they were dead, not acknowledging the ticket taker, even though the ticket taker wore a red armband. And on that armband was one word, which was understandable in many languages. And that word was control,
Mm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Play by the rules or suffer.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very interesting situation. And I think now whatever people see as control,
Mhm. Mhm.
they have a time of it. They have a time redefining things. You know, a guy said in the post office yesterday, said something, blah, 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 your sister. And I said, I have no idea. And he looked at me and he said, what kind of family is that? And I started thinking, okay, that's what they call virtue signaling, right? Where I'm not being a good commie, right? Because everybody knows, blah, 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 even though his family, I didn't bring it up because I think it's rather pointless to get into an argument with somebody about those kinds of things. And it was like, okay, fine. Presume what you want, but knowing the details, and he wasn't interested in hearing what I had to say because I wasn't going to say anything, not because it wouldn't make a difference anyway.
Mhm.
Right. So we're in a situation now, I think, from what I understand, in the places that I know about or read about, where there is no control, and certainly force is not an acceptable means of persuasion. But if
Mhm.
they're going to have soldiers in the street and stopping you, asking you if you need to be going where you're going, I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
what business is it of yours whether I need it or not? Because I'm going to tell you I need it. I need it for my mental health, whatever, I need to get out of the house.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
somebody's going to be questioning me about my needs,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Yeah, it's for mental stability, because if I'm not going to be able to drive around, I'm probably going to, put my scope on my AR-15 and sit in the edge of the woods somewhere and take pot shots at people who pass by, just for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, people do that, especially here.
Right.
It's amazing. But I'm going to segue over into some interesting things that happened to me today.
Okay.
Besides the medical meeting, right?
Okay.
I had my dentist actually turned shaman on me today out of nowhere.
Mhm.
And we were doing like a scaling and a deep cleaning. And then he started saying, he said, Danny, he started telling me about myself. And it was like, kind of like you visit a numerologist, and based on where you were born and the numerical translation of the letters in your name. And he started telling me about myself, and it was like, Mark, there's no way you can know all of that. Started telling me about my brother, started telling me about my family and this, that, and the other in grand detail. And then he's looked at me and he said, you're a writer. You need to write.
Yeah.
And, and you need to write a book, and I'll buy the first one. And it was
Okay.
like, Mark, where is this coming from? And he said, I need to be inspired, because I never really thought about writing, even though it, as plain as the nose on my face, that was a method of inspiring people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those very people that we were speaking about in the opening stages of this conversation,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Those people, they need something.
Mhm.
And if
Mhm.
they don't, they're not my concern anyway.
Mhm.
They're on their own path.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yep.
that took me to this analysis sheet that you sent me about when we ask everybody, what do you want?
Yes.
Some very interesting questions. And I have two responses to that. So I would like to announce to the audience that I'm going to be putting you on the spot. Principally, what I saw in all of this was people expressing a want. I was going to say a need, maybe they're closely matched, for a mentoring data scientists,
Mhm.
which it's not, it was a curriculum they're asking for as well,
Mhm.
right? A buddy, I mean, it was expressed in a number of different views. Roadmap being one would be like the curriculum, what are we going to do? And I think, Troy, I think that job is made for you and
Mhm.
is a way, because I know, you have a supreme interest in the educational system, that you were, at university in Bhutan and God knows everywhere you go. And me too, principally, but I think yours is a talent people are asking for help to learn,
Mhm. Sure.
right? And I think that's also an occupation and a service
Mhm.
that can
Mhm.
be provided those people, which you are extremely good at. I listen to you and me talking, and I think you and I talking, and I think, my God, where does that man's patience for listening to me come from? And I could say the most alarming things, and the emotional interest or attachment, uh, you see past it. I guess this is your property of being a data scientist, is to be able to look beyond the emotional reaction to the data itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you do that extremely well. And I would like to read, before I give up the microphone, I would like to say, I wrote something down, which I think is a pretty accurate, from what one person said, who was looking for a simple, understandable, deployable way to take data science models and connect them with a web interface. And this is where I got lost in the language.
Mhm.
Not Stream Lit, not Flask, and it can work with a simple Apache or Linux stack.
Mhm. Mhm.
So can you help me translate that and correct my language?
Well, yeah. So there's two aspects to that. I guess one is um, on the mathematical side when he's talking about models. We'd have to talk to that person more to actually, yeah, get the true insights of what he's talking about. But based on my knowledge and understanding of what it is and how he's presented that, he wants an easy way to do his job. So something that can help him do his job. And, being on the data scientist group, so he's working with mathematical models. He wants to be able to try them out and deploy them in a web-based, environment. So he's coming up with an idea that he thinks a system that can help him, and probably, if it is in existence and developed the way that he wants it developed, it would help him definitely, but probably help a lot of other data scientists as well. So, and then he's mentioning a number of tools like Flask and the other ones he mentioned, which is just kind of
Streamlit.
platforms. Yeah. So he's saying not these ones, but something new. So I'd still need to, get more information from what he's actually meaning to talk further about that. Without kind of making some big assumptions. But yeah, basically he's asking for something to help him do his job.
And let's just take this a step further, because I think this is the endeavor that many of our over 100,000 members is curious about, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've come to you or us, and they're saying, in a representative form, like you said, I'm looking for an easier way of doing my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's turning to, obviously, data science for an answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting for me to listen to you respond, because you know, your response was rather non-committal. And it was non-committal in that I'm looking, just peeping behind the curtain here and thinking, they have given you information that tells you that you need more information and that you're not going to respond directly to the information that they have given you without knowing more.
Yeah.
That seems to be a quality of being a data scientist.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it kind of, my brain kind of moves to the abstract level, and I build, you know, models, well, objects around, you know, what he's talking about, and I be, you know, conceptual rather than try and get into the specifics, if that makes sense. And that's why.
Tell me more.
So, you know, if we, as a data scientist, for example, the post analysis that you had a look at, that is a relational database. And in order to build that, and we can describe a little bit more about it as I go, but in that scenario, we have what's called entities. An entity is a member. So they're a LinkedIn member. And then there's an entity called a comment. And a LinkedIn member can make a comment. And there's an entity called a reaction. A reaction can have a type, which is either, you know, a like or a curious or, you know, a love. And a member also can react. And so, and then a member can comment, and that comment can have a like or a reaction. So that spreadsheet with all the ones and the linking, the IDs connecting, whenever you select a different one, it pulls up the member. We've mapped the relationships. And, you know, in order to create that, I had to think abstractly and say, okay, what are the entities involved? How do they relate to each other? And how am I going to join them on this one spreadsheet? So that's the process that I go through with almost anything, given the situation or, you know, something to think about. And when, you know, you're talking about this comment, and what he's talking about, I'm picking out points and saying, oh yeah, that's an entity. And now this is a relationship that he's saying. So he's got a job and he wants to, you know, he has to create models. So he wants to have a place to put them and some tools that he's talked about. So yeah, that's what's going on in my mind all the time, is this.
Would you have preferred, I'll finish this, to have given him some instructions before he commented? Would that be, I would rather it have been this way, because you're dealing with the situation the way it comes across now, you know, as an observer and an analyst of a comment, which is obviously infused with a number of different elements, you know, the guy's opinion, his job, all these things which are coming together to formulate a statement of his interest and what he knows about data scientists, how to approach you in a way in which he would disclose his level of knowledge about data science and ask you in an intelligent fashion something that would interest you in responding. I mean, now I feel like I'm talking like a data scientist now.
Sure. Yeah, but I think you're on the right track. I mean, it's like breaking it down to all these aspects of, yeah, I think who he is and why he would comment and what he said, they're all, yeah, interesting attributes to look at this scenario. And yeah, to go to your question, I wouldn't change the way we structure or the question, or, you know, look for extra information. I think, you know, moving based on what is there. And then, like we were saying earlier, let's just post it out and then see what we get, and then make the next step. So either way, works for me. And I guess, yeah, what we were talking about in another earlier video is about rather than just giving that one question, saying, okay, everybody, we're going to be doing an analysis. We want to know everybody, what do you want? And, give us your ideas about this, that, and the other. But we didn't do that so that we could leave it open and just say, whoever responds and what they respond with will take us to the next step. And you said, yeah, people looking for mentors, they're looking for guidance. I mean, this is the same conversation we're kind of having in the beginning, is what people need in their life. And I think a lot of people want to be told what to do. Otherwise, they don't know what to do. And if there's no leader, no strong, person saying, okay, this is what you should all do, then a lot of people, because of, I guess, yeah, human nature, just get depressed or unsure. And, and this is why we have kind of the way the world is right now with the governments, and then the governments run, inside organizations, and organizations have CEOs, and then, people who just come out of school, they don't know what to do. So they, even before school, the system's telling, you got to go to school and sit there, you got to do this. And of course, the parent model is there as well. So parents can give that guidance. But ultimately, I think working towards something where within you as an individual what to do, and having a tool that enables you to open that up and say, yes, this is what I want to do. Through a series of questions that we're working on now, with the first one being what we posted on LinkedIn is, what do you want? And then allowing individuals to make up their own mind about what it is they want, and not be influenced by, I guess, yeah, any level of hierarchy structure, even, parents, or teachers, or employers, or the government politicians, or the kings and queens of the world. So, but yeah, linking to that, I did some work, and it'd be good if I might just share it right now.
Sure, go ahead.
And I'll read this. Actually, I'm going to send you. Let me
Are you
try.
sending it to on Skype, on how?
I'm going to share my screen, actually. This will
Okay.
come up. And it's very early, and I wasn't, planning on presenting it yet, but I think it's relevant. So I'm going to go ahead and also see your reaction, Danny, as well, as this is coming forward. But this is what I'm playing with, the concept of DT. A product of Datalogical Services, the wisdom is within you. Proposal and project plan. Now, of course, I've got to fill all this out, and it's not there yet. And all I have is the product description. Well, let me make that bigger. And
okay. I get excited when you show me a proposal.
Well, yeah.
There's some digested thought coming here now.
DT.
Deity.
Deity. the short form of D is DT, is an online interactive AI system that determines personal and business direction. Direction is a compromise between desire and practicality. This self-assessment tool increases the visibility of that practicality so that direction remains in good measure, objectively sound, and adequately overseen. It is for those that are interested in having more control over their life and wish to create their own future. It is accessible 24/7 and provides an immersive experience of being guided through a series of simple yet profound questions that resembles having an enjoyable conversation with a longtime friend. Best experienced in a quiet room with headphones, simply speak and have your ideas transformed from thoughts to reality.
That's rather poetic,
That's it.
meaning that it has a kind of eternal quality within what you've said. That's profound, I think, and leading. You know, it's like when I read that, or hear that, I instantly want to know more, because you're tantalizing. You know, you're spicing it up in a way in which my reaction is one of deep curiosity, which I think, you know, those kinds of qualitative words, right? Of from almost in a psychological sense, or a spiritual sense, or mystical level, or however, beyond the scientific, because we may use science to answer questions we have that we don't think science can answer. We can always try it, you know, see if it works. But how does science or mathematics go about determining curiosity or inspiration, you know, or things of that nature, which seems to be, from my experience, you know, the nut that everybody is looking for.
Yeah, well,
to make their life interesting and worthwhile.
yeah, I think it relates to the work that is in with Bhutan and happiness, the same aspect. And, you know, the work we've done and exposure to Bhutan has let me come to the realization that, you know, we cannot really measure happiness, but you can measure how many times you thought about it. How many times did you ask yourself, am I happy today? In the same sense with curiosity and these other aspects, you know, if you want to be curious, if you want to be innovative, how many times did you stop and think about being curious? And how many times did you stop and think about being innovative or creative? So those things can be measured. And then the results of that, you know, can go in a positive or a good or bad or whatever we want to talk about. It can give you direction around, you know, what to do next. And these are the things we were talking about with our 10 questions as we're developing them. It's not whether or not, the first question is, do you know? Do you have an answer to what do you want? So, yeah, before even knowing, okay, do I have an answer to what do I want, is how many times today have I asked myself, what do I want? Have I been, you know, enough, you know, guided to actually say, you know, here's a question that you can ask yourself, what do you want? So the kind of maths and the statistics and the measuring aspects, the quantitative side of it can still happen without us actually, you know, getting into the aspects of are you happy and what does happiness mean? The answers to that are, subjective, and that is on the, I guess, when we talk about qualitative versus quantitative, it's on the qualitative side. So yeah, this tool that we can work on and that we're planning to and already putting into place by posting the questions out to the group and seeing what they respond with, hopefully can, give the people some independent control, so that no matter what's going on outside and what the government's doing, what the police are doing, an individual can say, yes, I know what to do today, and it may be in line with what it needs to happen, because you don't want to break the law, and I believe laws serve a purpose, and but you can still say, individually, I know what I want and I have a plan to get there, and what I'm doing right now is benefiting me in getting what I want, and just getting that guidance from within.
There's a movie, you may know it, Buster Scruggs. Have you seen? No, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
It's about, it comes in like 3 or 4 different series, but Buster Scruggs, it's Coen Brothers film. And there's a scene in there where Buster's out in the, I don't know, Badlands, and he goes into a shack, and he says to the bartender, I mean, it's really just a shack in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. And he says, I'd like to have me a shot of whiskey to keep my singing voice nice and clear and clean. And the room is filled with people who are obviously drinking. It looks like a bar. And he says, we don't serve whiskey. No, he says, this is a dry county. Whiskey is illegal. And he looks at the other guys and he says, well, what are they drinking? Whiskey. And he says, well, how come they get whiskey and I don't? And he says, they's outlaws. And then he says, well, I'm an outlaw too. Don't let this white dress, your shirt fool you, and go on and go, and ends up in a gunfight and he kills everybody. But that was a very interesting thing. It's like we serve whiskey to people who don't obey the law.
Yes.
Right. They're outlaws. That's why they're here. And he says, well, I'm an outlaw too. And he says, you look like a tin horn. Right. So then the plot gets complicated there. But the point being is that he declares himself to be an outlaw.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which in a great sense is, I do what I want to. And if I want whiskey and you're serving these guys, well, you can serve me too, because I relate to them. We have something in common. We's outlaws. Anyway, that came up because there's all kinds of presentations of these ideas that make their way into films, in particular, popular films. That is a way, of course, of spreading ideas. And the Coen brothers, who, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and films that they make, I mean, a number of very offbeat films, has placed them in the highest echelon of filmmakers and notoriety. And you're always looking for films that they make because they're always very interesting and somehow or another ride the range of acceptability. Right. And test, of course, the idea, a lot like what you're talking about, is to test a person themselves. Right. Because I'm looking at the film. I'm part of this film too, because I'm a watcher. Right. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking what's going on and how does that affect me, and does the effect carry on Do I remember the film? Do I tell other people about the film? Because it sort of accentuates a way that I feel, you know, when everybody in the room draws on this guy and they have a gunfight and, you know, one way or the other, it brings out certain hidden things in myself in the dark or as a viewer, you know, on the other side of the screen. Nobody's watching. Nobody knows how I feel about anything. And yet when something appears on the screen that may be a bit controversial, I may go, yeah, right? As a way of identifying myself with what other people have created. So it creates a kind of sense of community that during COVID days, of course, can't really have because I can't understand people when they speak behind a mask.
Sure.
It's like, what was that?
Mhm,
Can you write it down?
mhm.
What? Can you write it down? Nod your head. You know, it's very interesting. But your way of seeing things, it seems to me, you know, way of opening an oyster to get to the pearl
Mm,
in a way that, you know, you seem so calm and so, you know, self-assured, and you're not out there to, you know, protesting or anything. But when you speak, you know, I look at a person that has a way of defining reality that doesn't interfere from its technical base with having a good conversation with you and reaching some kind of conclusions that directly affect my life and how pleased I am with it.
mhm.
It's kind of a mystical element, really, as I look at it and think about it.
Okay. But yeah, speaking of writing it down, you mentioned writing a book,
Huh.
and I think that's a great idea. I think we've got the makings of a good story, and yeah, I'm um, I guess being presumptuous in saying we should write it together, and it would be, yeah, something that I think should flow quite easily. I don't know how many pages we need to be
Until the idea is expressed,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
They're like Machiavelli's The Prince, right? It's a bedside table book. I think
sure,
I could read it every night before going to bed. And it's
but
probably one of the most popular publications ever printed.
yeah,
You know, so as long as it expresses the idea and keeps people
mhm,
interested,
mhm,
you
mhm,
know, that's how long it should be. Right?
yep,
In film, they're saying, okay, you know, 120 minutes maximum.
mhm,
But there are
mhm,
ones that go over it, you know, 2 hour
sure,
film.
sure,
And then, you know, films are made in the editing room anyway. But then what they do is they take out irrelevant stuff. They say that, you know, nothing is filmed that doesn't push the plot forward.
yes,
That's a
mhm,
huge expense. It's coordinating a lot of activities from
mhm,
different
mhm,
angles.
mhm,
But yet at the same time, when the whole film ends up on the cutting room floor,
mhm,
it's like, okay, why did we do that?
mhm,
And
mhm,
I think for us in particular, like the Coen brothers, um, we are writing a book as we go along, and we
mhm,
are also, you know, creating a film as it goes along. I mean, we
sure,
can always inject something, you know, a little scene about little Mary comes home from school, and we can make what we're talking about today relevant in a larger sense.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
guess little Mary would be all those people who would be listening to us now,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
In finding some interest in what it is we have to say.
yep,
You know, it's like, hey, I thought that way too, like
mhm,
with, you know, Buster Scruggs.
sure,
And that's what makes things successful. And when people can relate to them and they don't have to spend a lot of energy doing it. So I think your suggestion is being fulfilled.
the light's going
Interesting.
dim.
Okay. Now, for dramatic effect, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, shall we call it a day then?
yeah,
Or
I
you
think
have more you
that's a
want to
good-
say?
No, I think that's a great spot to leave it for the end of this one. And yeah, we've got more to come, more things to do, more
Yep, absolutely.
to
Absolutely.
create our own
I'll
future.
have a conversation with you on the side after we cut this film
Okay.
and just to tidy up, okay?
Yep. I'm gonna say
Thank you, everyone.
bye, everybody.
Thank you, Troy.
Stop.